I thought I was clever. I thought I had it all figured out. I took everything from the woman who loved me most, left her with nothing, and walked away feeling like a king. But karma has a way of teaching lessons you never saw coming. This is my story of ultimate regret. If you've ever wondered what happens when greed destroys love, stay with me. This story will shock you. Hit that like button if you're ready for a tale of betrayal, karma, and justice. And don't forget to subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next. My name is Marcus, and at 42 I thought I was untouchable. I had built an empire from nothing: real estate deals that made headlines, investment portfolios that grew faster than I could count the zeros. But none of it would have been possible without Sarah. Sarah was everything I thought I wanted when we married 8 years ago. She was a registered nurse, intelligent, caring, with this incredible ability to make everyone around her feel important. When I started my first real estate venture, she didn't hesitate for a second. She quit her job at the hospital, walked away from her own dreams, and threw herself completely into supporting mine. While other wives complained about their husbands working late, Sarah would bring me coffee at midnight and help me organize contracts. She answered phones, managed schedules, even helped me practice my pitches before big meetings. She believed in me when no one else did, including myself sometimes. She'd say, "Marcus, we're building something incredible together." We. Always we. Those early years were magical. We'd celebrate every closed deal like it was our wedding day all over again. Sarah would dance around our tiny apartment, her eyes sparkling with pride. Not for what the money could buy, but for what we had accomplished together. She made every success feel twice as sweet, because I got to share it with someone who genuinely cared about my happiness, not just the lifestyle it provided. By year 5 we had everything. The penthouse overlooking the city, the vacation home in the Hamptons, cars that cost more than most people's houses. Sarah had transformed from that nurse in scrubs to this elegant woman who could hold her own at charity galas and business dinners. She learned about real estate, about investments, about my world because she wanted to be part of it. But somewhere along the way, something inside me started to change. Success has a way of whispering lies in your ear, and I was listening. The more money I made, the more important I felt. The more deals I closed, the more I believed my own hype. I started seeing Sarah's contributions differently. Instead of remembering how she had sacrificed everything to help me build this empire, I began to see her as just there, part of the furniture in my increasingly impressive life. I catch myself thinking cruel thoughts. She wasn't as sharp in business meetings anymore. Well, of course not. She hadn't worked in her field for years. She seemed content with our quiet evenings at home. How boring compared to the high-energy world I navigated daily. She'd gained a little weight, had a few more lines around her eyes, the natural progression of a woman in her late 30s, but my eye had begun to wander. That's when I met Victoria at a real estate conference in Miami. 28 years old, ambitious, with this hungry look in her eyes that I recognized from my own mirror years ago. She was everything Sarah had once been, plus everything Sarah no longer was. Young, aggressive, unattached to anything that might slow her down. Victoria flattered my ego in ways Sarah had stopped doing. Sarah's love had become comfortable, predictable. She'd say, "I'm proud of you," with the warmth of someone who had been saying it for years. But Victoria looked at me like I was the most fascinating man she'd ever met. She'd hang on every word when I talked business. She'd gasp at the right moments when I told stories about my biggest deals. The affair started innocently enough. A few drinks after the conference, then text messages about business opportunities. Within a month, I was flying to wherever Victoria happened to be, telling Sarah I had investor meetings or property tours. The lies came so easily it scared me, but not enough to stop. Sarah knew something was wrong. She had this incredible intuition. It's what made her such a good nurse, being able to sense when something was off with her patients. She'd ask gentle questions, give me opportunities to come clean, create space for honest conversations. But instead of seeing this as the love and trust it was, I saw it as suffocating. I felt trapped by her goodness, resentful of her unwavering faith in me. The worst part? Sarah never stopped believing in us. Even when I'd come home late reeking of Victoria's perfume, even when I'd snap at her for asking about my day, she'd still curl up next to me at night and whisper that she loved me. Her persistence felt like pressure, and her love began to feel like a burden I no longer wanted to carry. That's when the truly evil thoughts started creeping in. What if I could have my cake and eat it too? What if I could start fresh with Victoria but keep everything Sarah and I had built? After all, hadn't I been the brains behind the operation? Hadn't I been the one taking all the risks, making all the real decisions? Sarah had just been supportive. And support, I convinced myself, wasn't really a contribution worth half of everything I'd earned. Looking back now, I can see how twisted my thinking had become. But at the time it felt logical. It felt justified. It felt like the obvious solution to a problem that was entirely of my own making. Sarah deserved better than what I was becoming, but instead of trying to become better myself, I decided she deserved nothing at all. The planning took months, and I'm ashamed to admit how methodical I was about destroying the woman who had given me everything. I consulted with lawyers who specialized in protecting assets during divorce proceedings. I learned about offshore accounts, shell companies, and paper trails that could make millions disappear legally. Every conversation felt like I was plotting a heist, except the victim was sleeping next to me every night, still telling me she loved me. I started moving money gradually, creating fake business losses on paper, while the real profits flowed into accounts Sarah didn't even know existed. I'd sit across from her at dinner, watching her talk about her day volunteering at the women's shelter, and all I could think about was how to hide the commission I just earned from our latest property flip. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was helping women rebuild their lives, while I was systematically destroying hers. The cruelest part was how easy it was. Sarah trusted me completely. When I told her we needed to restructure some investments for tax purposes, she signed whatever I put in front of her without question. When I said I was taking on a silent partner who preferred anonymity, she didn't push for details. Her blind faith in me became the weapon I used against her. The day I served Sarah with divorce papers, I had orchestrated it like a military operation. I waited until she was at her book club, the one thing she did purely for herself, and had them delivered there. I wanted her humiliated in front of her friends. I wanted her to know that her safe spaces weren't safe anymore. When she came home that evening, her eyes were red and swollen, but she still tried to salvage what was left of us. "Marcus, we can work through this," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Whatever's wrong, we can fix it together. We always have." That's when I delivered the line I'd practiced in the mirror for weeks. "You contributed nothing to my success, Sarah. You've been dead weight for years, and I'm done carrying you." The way her face crumbled will haunt me forever. It was like watching someone's soul leave their body. This woman who had sacrificed her career, her independence, her own dreams to build our life together, was being told she was worthless by the person she trusted most. The legal battle that followed was brutal. My expensive team of lawyers demolished her modest attorney. Every asset she thought was ours became mysteriously mine. The prenup she'd signed in love became the chains that bound her to poverty. Within 6 months, Sarah went from being the wife of a millionaire to living in a studio apartment, working part-time at a clinic just to survive. And I felt nothing but relief. Life with Victoria should have been everything I dreamed of. We moved into a penthouse that cost more per month than most people made in a year. I bought her jewelry, designer clothes, took her on trips to Paris and Tokyo. For the first few months, I felt like I had won the lottery of life. I had youth, beauty, excitement, and all the money to enjoy it. But Victoria wasn't Sarah, and that difference cut both ways. When I came home stressed from a difficult negotiation, Victoria would suggest we go shopping or hit the clubs. Sarah used to make me tea and listen to me vent for hours, asking thoughtful questions that helped me work through problems. When I got food poisoning from bad sushi, Victoria wrinkled her nose and went to stay at her friend's place. Sarah would have nursed me back to health, bringing me soup and cool washcloths for my fever. The loneliness crept in slowly, like water through a crack in a dam. Victoria was beautiful on my arm at events, but she couldn't hold a conversation about anything deeper than fashion or celebrity gossip. Sarah and I used to talk for hours about books, about dreams, about the future we were building together. With Victoria, silence felt awkward, so we filled it with expensive distractions. Then my heart attack hit at 43. I collapsed in my office during what should have been a routine meeting. As I lay there on the cold marble floor, clutching my chest and gasping for air, all I could think about was Sarah's face. When the paramedics arrived, I asked them to call my emergency contact, forgetting I'd changed it from Sarah to Victoria 6 months earlier. Victoria showed up at the hospital for exactly 20 minutes. She looked uncomfortable, kept checking her phone, and left when the doctor started talking about lifestyle changes and recovery time. "This is just too heavy for me right now, Marcus," she said, kissing my forehead like I was a sick relative she barely knew. That night, alone in my hospital bed, I realized I had traded a woman who would have slept in that uncomfortable chair beside me for someone who couldn't even pretend to care when my life hung in the balance. But I pushed those thoughts away. Victoria was young, I told myself. She'd mature. Sarah would have been suffocating anyway, hovering and worrying too much. I was still making excuses for Victoria when she destroyed me completely. 3 weeks after my heart attack, I came home early from a doctor's appointment to find Victoria in our bed with my business partner Derek. The man who had helped me hide assets from Sarah was now helping himself to my girlfriend. They didn't even have the decency to look ashamed when I walked in. Victoria just pulled the sheets up to her chin and said, "Marcus, we need to talk." The conversation that followed was like watching my life get fed through a paper shredder. Victoria had been seeing Derek for months. Worse, they had been planning this together. While I was busy destroying my marriage, they were busy studying my business operations, my accounts, my vulnerabilities. Derek knew where every penny was hidden because he'd helped me hide it. Victoria knew my passwords, my routines, my weaknesses because I'd trusted her completely. Within days, they had cleaned out 3 of my offshore accounts and disappeared to somewhere in the Caribbean. The irony was suffocating. I had taught them exactly how to steal everything while covering their tracks legally. The same methods I'd used to rob Sarah blind were now being used against me. But that wasn't even the worst of it. Derek had kept copies of everything. Every illegal transfer, every forged document, every lie I'd told under oath during the divorce proceedings. He sent it all to the IRS, the SEC, and Sarah's lawyer as his final gift to me. Suddenly, investigators were crawling through every aspect of my business. Assets I thought were untouchable got frozen overnight. The empire I'd spent 8 years building crumbled in 8 days. While my world collapsed, Sarah was rising from the ashes I'd left her in. The woman I'd abandoned as worthless had started a consulting business helping other divorced women navigate financial recovery. She'd turned her pain into purpose, using her experience with my betrayal to protect others from similar fates. Her business was thriving. She'd been featured in magazines, invited to speak at conferences. The media loved her story. the nurse who rebuilt her life after being left with nothing by a millionaire husband. She handled every interview with grace, never speaking ill of me publicly, which somehow made my shame burn even brighter. When I finally saw her again at the court-ordered asset division hearing, I barely recognized her. This wasn't the broken woman I'd left behind. Sarah walked into that courtroom like she owned it, confident and radiant in a way I'd never seen before. She'd found something I'd never given her. Respect for herself that didn't depend on anyone else's opinion. Sitting across from Sarah in that courtroom was like staring into a mirror that showed me everything I'd thrown away. Her lawyer presented evidence of every hidden asset, every forged document, every lie I'd told. The same prenup I'd used as a weapon against her was now worthless. Fraud invalidates everything. The judge ordered me to pay back every penny I'd stolen from her, plus damages, plus her legal fees. But the money wasn't what broke me. It was the moment Sarah looked directly at me for the first time in over a year. I expected anger, hatred, the desire for revenge. Instead, I saw something far worse: pity. She looked at me like I was a stranger she felt sorry for. Someone who had destroyed his own life so completely that he deserved compassion rather than contempt. "I'm sorry this is how your story ends, Marcus," she said quietly as we left the courthouse. "I really hoped you'd find happiness, even if it wasn't with me." That's when I realized the true price of what I'd done. Sarah had loved me enough to want me to be happy even after I'd destroyed her life. And I had traded that kind of love, unconditional, generous, real, for fool's gold that disappeared the moment I tried to hold on to it. Today, I live in a one-bedroom apartment across town from the penthouse I used to own. Sarah owns that penthouse now, bought it at auction with her business profits. Sometimes I walk by just to see the lights on in what used to be our bedroom. She's engaged to a doctor she met at one of her speaking events. A man who apparently sees her worth in ways I was too blind and selfish to recognize. I lost everything and she gained everything, but that's not really what this story is about. This story is about the moment you realize that everything you thought mattered, money, status, excitement, youth, is worthless compared to someone who truly loves you. Sarah gave me 8 years of unconditional love, unwavering support, and complete trust. I traded it all for a few months of empty thrills and a lifetime of regret. They say you don't know what you have until it's gone. I lived that truth in the most painful way possible. If this story touched you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more real-life stories that will make you think twice about your choices. Remember, karma never forgets an address, and sometimes the price of greed is everything you actually cared about.